These are the headlines we're following at this hour. Israeli forces say they've completely encircled Gaza City after heavy clashes with Hamas on the outskirts of Gaza. This as it struck the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp for the third straight day. Meanwhile, more foreigners and injured Palestinians crossed the Rafah border to Egypt, including 5 South Korean nationals. President Yoon at the AI Safety Summit called for global norms and a regulating body for AI and digital technologies to tackle fake news and the digital divide. South Korea also joined a joint declaration to address catastrophic risks of AI. The U.S. has criticized Russia for revoking its nuclear test ban agreement, which it says will raise tensions amid the war in Ukraine. Russian officials say the move does not mean resuming nuclear testing. Good afternoon. We start with the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli forces say they've completely encircled Gaza City after heavy clashes with Hamas on the outskirts of Gaza. This as it struck the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp for the third straight day. Our Isingje has the details.
The Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff said Thursday that Israeli forces have surrounded Gaza City on 3 sides and are currently operating at the heart of the city, fighting in close quarters. Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari also warned that with the Israeli forces beginning their operation inside Gaza City, a ceasefire is not currently on the table. And according to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his forces are currently at the height of the battle with Hamas, but have had impressive successes and continue to advance. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister also said he'd made no decision on supplying fuel to the war-torn Gaza Strip, where hospitals are reportedly running dangerously low on energy supplies. His comments come after the chief of Israel's armed forces earlier signaled a willingness to ease the fuel embargo on the Palestinian enclave if hospitals can be refueled under supervision. The Israeli military has also continued to target Hamas commanders with strikes against recognized refugee camps in Gaza. The Jabalia camp was bombarded for the third straight day, with Palestinian authorities saying the attacks have so far killed 195 people, with 120 missing. Thursday's airstrikes also included a smaller camp located in Barej, home to about 46,000 Palestinian refugees registered with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees. Gazan authorities say 15 people were killed in a strike at the Barej camp. Palestinian authorities say more than 9,000 of its people have been killed since October 7th, with more than half of Gaza's population displaced. Isingje, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, following the humanitarian breakthrough at the Rafah crossing, more foreigners and injured Palestinians crossed into Egypt on the second day of Rafah's opening, including 5 South Korean nationals. Our Shin Se-byul reports using our AI reporter.
On the second day of the Rafah crossing reopening on Thursday, 344 foreign nationals and dual citizens as well as dozens of severely injured Palestinians passed through the Egypt-Gaza border. The Rafah crossing is the only Gaza border crossing that isn't under Israeli control and is a crucial gateway for humanitarian support.
So we finally got the chance to almost leave Gaza. This is my 5th attempt to leave.
Thursday's crossings follow the at least 361 foreign nationals and 76 injured Palestinians who were able to cross into Egypt on Wednesday. The Egyptian government said it plans to help evacuate around 7,000 foreigners and dual nationals from the Gaza Strip without providing a specific timeline. Among those crossing the border on Thursday were a South Korean family. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the family of 5, who were the only South Koreans living in the Gaza Strip, were safely evacuated to Egypt on Thursday.
I have a Korean nationality and we live in Gaza. Thank God, today we left Gaza to Egypt. Thankfully, we left behind the war, this situation, but our family and relatives are still in Gaza.
The ministry said the family arrived in Egypt at around 11:15 a.m. local time and they are being provided with consular assistance, including accommodation and medical checkups. Meanwhile, a Japanese aircraft, bringing 15 South Koreans and one foreign national family member, departed Tel Aviv for Tokyo on Thursday along with Japanese nationals. It is the second flight Japan is providing to South Korea, following the offering of 20 seats last month. This is seen as returning the favor after Seoul brought back some 50 Japanese nationals along with South Koreans from Israel on October 14. With this, there are 420 South Korean citizens remaining in Israel. 신세벽, 아리랑 뉴스.
The U.S. has criticized Russia for revoking its nuclear test ban agreement, which it says will raise tensions amid the war in Ukraine. Russian officials say the move does not mean resuming nuclear testing, but is to mirror Washington's stance. Yoon reports.
On Thursday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed concerns over Russia's withdrawal of its ratification of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, calling it an irresponsibility that represents a significant step in the wrong direction. He also added that Russia's action will only serve to set back confidence in the international arms control regime. This followed Putin's signing of a law that was passed unanimously in both the upper and lower houses of the Russian parliament. The legislation withdraws Moscow's ratification of the 1996 global treaty that bans all nuclear explosions, including live tests of nuclear weapons, whether for peaceful or military purposes. Russia argues that the treaty was never effective because some key countries did not ratify it, and on October 6th announced its intention to withdraw from the treaty to mirror the position of the U.S., which has signed but not ratified the treaty. In addition to the United States, the CTBT has yet to be ratified by China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel, Iran, and Egypt. Moscow says it will not resume nuclear testing unless Washington does, but arms control experts are concerned it may be inching towards a test that the West would perceive as a threatening escalation in the context of the Ukrainian conflict. Post-Soviet Russia has not carried out a nuclear test to date. The Soviet Union last tested in 1990 and the United States in 1992. No country except North Korea has conducted a test involving a nuclear explosion this century. With the abandonment of the CTBT, the last remaining bilateral nuclear weapons treaty between Washington and Moscow is the New START, under which the two nations used to regularly inspect each other's nuclear facilities and limit warheads. However, the treaty was suspended by Russia in February and is due to expire in early 2026. 이은진, 아리랑 뉴스.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is set to visit Seoul later this month to take part in annual bilateral defense ministerial talks and other events. According to the Pentagon on Thursday, Austin will attend a security consultative meeting with his new South Korean counterpart, Shin Won-sik, and meet other senior South Korean officials, where he will look to emphasize Washington's ironclad security commitment to South Korea. He would also attend an inaugural defense ministerial meeting involving UN command member states. The Pentagon chief's visit is part of a three-nation tour, which includes stops in India and Indonesia, as Washington looks to maintain its strategic focus on the Indo-Pacific region. President Yoon at the AI Safety Summit called for global norms and a regulating body for AI and digital technologies to tackle fake news and the digital divide. South Korea also joined a joint declaration to address the catastrophic risks of AI. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
President Yoon has called for global standards on digital governance and a body that oversees it, warning that without principles, artificial intelligence could threaten freedom and democracy around the world. This came at the first AI Safety Summit held in southeast England, where Yoon virtually joined discussions with world leaders, researchers and tech executives to address the unknown and potentially destabilizing impact of AI across societies. Yoon said the emergence of generative AI such as ChatGPT has improved everyday convenience and industrial productivity, but has widened economic gaps and increased the proliferation of fake news that undermines freedom and electoral systems. The president stressed that digital technologies, including AI, should contribute to expanding human freedom and welfare and not threaten the safety of individuals and societies. He said this also means there should be equal opportunities to innovate with AI and reap its benefits. Here, Yoon noted that South Korea in September announced the Digital Bill of Rights based on 5 principles: freedom, fairness, safety, innovation, and solidarity. At the 2-day forum, some 28 governments, including South Korea, the UK, and the United States and China, penned the so-called Bletchley Declaration, the world's first joint document on ensuring AI is developed safely and responsibly. Recognizing that the technology could pose catastrophic risk to humanity, the document stressed the danger of AI systems, stirring further cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and the development of biological weapons. The governments agreed to work together to identify shared concerns and build a scientific understanding of the risks in discussions going forward to design, develop, and use AI in ways that are human-centric, trustworthy, and responsible, with a pro-innovation and proportionate governance.
So we have agreed that Bletchley Park should be the first of a series of international safety summits, with both Korea and France agreeing to host further summits next year. The late Stephen Hawking once said, "AI is likely to be the best or worst thing to happen to humanity." If we can sustain the collaboration that we have fostered over these last 2 days, I profoundly believe that we can make it the best.
President Yoon pledged to carefully heed the opinions of each country and prepare for follow-up discussions next year. His office says South Korea and the UK have agreed to co-host a mini virtual summit in 6 months' time, ahead of the second AI Safety Summit this time next year. Seoul, Arirang News.
President Yoon will hold a bilateral summit Friday with Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, who is currently in Seoul heading an economic delegation. According to officials, President Yoon will meet with the Irish Taoiseach at the Yongsan presidential office and discuss trade relations and bilateral cooperation in various fields upon the 40th anniversary of South Korea-Ireland ties. Varadkar told Irish media he will discuss ways to strengthen partnerships in areas such as climate change, global insecurity, threats to democracy, and the rule of law. Ireland is also looking to deepen its engagement with the Asia-Pacific region and sees Seoul as a crucial gateway to the region. Arirang News will hold a one-on-one interview with the Irish PM, which will be broadcast in our 6 p.m. newscast, along with updates on the summit. President Yoon vowed that the government will provide the strong support small businesses need, saying the top office saw hardships firsthand during recent visits across different industries. President Yoon was speaking Friday at an annual event for small businesses and micro-enterprises held in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province. He added that the government's budget proposal included $3 billion to provide low-interest business loan opportunities and plans to forgive any extra funds that were prepaid to help businesses through the COVID-19 pandemic. President Yoon visited some of the 2,000 businesses from a range of industries and gave recognition to the contribution of small businesses to the country. South Korea and the OECD have launched a historic first cooperation network to promote fair and innovative personnel management in Asia, such as hiring and training. South Korea's all-electronic process and strict evaluation system are to provide insights. Our Lee Si-hoo tells us more.
South Korea's Ministry of Personnel Management will play a leading role in public sector human resources management in the Asia region during this ongoing era of digital transformation. This is according to Minister Kim Seung-ho at a launch ceremony held in Seoul on Thursday for a network between South Korea and the OECD that will be the basis for cooperation in this sector.
Korea is leading the world in many fields, and the sector of personnel administration is no exception. Korea's personnel management system, especially the electronic system, is nearly the best among OECD members, so many countries are trying to benchmark it. It is in this situation that the OECD decided it would be good to share Korea's advanced system with Southeast Asian countries, so we collaborated with the OECD to launch this personnel administration network for the first time ever.
Minister Kim says Seoul's strength in IT allows for an all-electronic process in hiring, training, and even retirement. Another strength, its fairness.
Inequality in the recruitment system leads to corruption in the country, but almost every part of South Korea's recruitment system is actually managed very strictly, from the exam or interview questions to the announcement.
The theme for the launch ceremony was leading the public sector in the era of digital transformation, culture, technology, HRM. Representatives from 13 Asian countries discussed the need for cooperation to overcome any crisis they could face and secure new opportunities.
We have essentially an incredible number of people at the senior levels in governments that are retiring from government across the region. At the same time, we have all of these developments with technology occurring at the same time, and how to leverage this opportunity to truly transform the public service. There has never been an opportunity before quite like this before.
Following a meeting with the Singapore delegation, Minister Kim signed a memorandum of cooperation with the top representative of Thailand, promising mutual cooperation. On Friday, the minister will have a meeting with his counterpart from the Philippine Civil Service Commission to seek ways to cooperate. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
From his recent trip to the Middle East, President Yoon has secured mega deals for domestic businesses, and hopes are high that South Korea could have a second business boom in the region, and this time in areas other than the traditional construction sector. Our Lee Soo-jin has more.
Interest in the Middle Eastern market is currently very high in South Korea. The country's trade volume with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar jumped 63.1% on year in 2022 compared to the 12.3% increase with the world. While the first Middle East boom mostly involved construction orders, the second includes various new industries. One company, Planty Farm, has already secured deals in a major new industry that the Middle East is seeking to grow: smart farms. Planty Farm became the first company from Korea to build a smart farm in Kuwait, and more recently formed a joint venture with a UAE firm to begin construction on one. Countries in the Middle East are taking a special interest in South Korea's smart farming technology, as it's one of the most water-stressed regions in the world.
The vertical smart farms like this one can mass-produce vegetables all year, regardless of the weather.
These plants, grown on vertically stacked racks, don't need natural sunlight, soil, or water, thanks to the LED grow lights and sensors that control water pH and humidity levels. But there's still much left to do.
We need to keep doing market research to find what people need, and right partner and customer also need to keep developing, expanding our lineup. Most of Korean actor companies are relatively small businesses, so they need financial support.
While the MOUs indicate strong interest in conducting business with South Korea, further steps need to be taken to create real economic value.
It is necessary for Korean government to provide diplomatic backups, since Middle East countries pay relatively more attention to diplomatic and religious justification in economic partnership.
It's also important for South Korea to be aware that other major economies are vying to win contracts in the Middle East. The expert said that in the competition against Chinese firms, companies should emphasize their past success with industrial development, and against U.S. firms, the price competitiveness and quality assurance. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Western Europe, Storm Ciarán has killed at least 7 and left dozens injured. Storm Ciarán on Thursday battered the UK, Belgium, Spain and France and other areas, causing widespread disruption. It brought heavy torrential rain and winds of up to 200 kilometers per hour. Almost 20,000 UK residents suffered from power cuts around noon on Thursday, while many homes were damaged. Schools closed and airlines and train operators temporarily suspended services across Western Europe. In the US on Thursday, the House passed a bill worth $14.3 billion in military aid for Israel as Tel Aviv continues its fight against Hamas. The Republican-led bill won the House vote by a margin of 226 to 196. The Democratic-led Senate had already proposed pairing aid for Israel with additional assistance for Ukraine in its war against Russia, but Republicans are opposing any additional aid for Ukraine. Democrat Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called the newly passed House GOP bill a deeply flawed proposal. In the U.S. on Thursday, an arraignment was held for Dwayne Keith Davis over the 1996 murder of hip-hop music icon Tupac Shakur. Davis, also known as Keith D, pleaded not guilty to the charge of murder with a deadly weapon. He has been accused of providing the firearm to a passenger in the Las Vegas drive-by shooting that fatally wounded Tupac. He is allegedly the only surviving person who was in the vehicle. Davis's charge was prompted by his own 2019 tell-all memoir and multiple interviews where he vividly described the crime scene. The 60-year-old was arrested on September 29th in Henderson, a city near Las Vegas, and remains jailed without bail. In Switzerland, auction house Christie's Geneva is set to take bids on what it describes as the largest internally flawless fancy vivid blue diamond to appear at auction. Known as the Blue Royale, a Christie's representative said the gemstone could sell for up to $50 million. The 17.6-carat Blue Royale is preset in a ring and will go under the hammer alongside other rare jewels on November 7th, with interest said to be high following a world tour of the diamond. In 2016, Christie's sold the Oppenheimer Blue, a 14.6-carat blue diamond, for more than $57 million, and officials remain hopeful that the Blue Royale can surpass that amount. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. A murky and rainy Friday for those of us in the central parts of the country. Rain picks up through the mid-afternoon with a chance of thunder and lightning. Then rain clouds will move further south. And until Saturday, Gangwon-do province could see up to 40 millimeters of showers. The capital area could see 5 to 20 millimeters. Then the south coast could see up to 50 millimeters of rainfall. Afternoon highs are 2 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday, but still hovering way above the season norms in most places. Seoul gets up to 21 degrees this afternoon, and depending on what part of Jeju Island you're in, it could be rainy, sunny, or cloudy today. It will rain through Saturday in the south, but the sun returns to central parts of the country. Then Sunday looks to be a rainy one nationwide, which will continue into next Monday. Then please brace yourselves for a winter chill next week, with morning temperatures hovering around 5 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
The Rafah border to Egypt has finally opened, but only a few people could leave Gaza. Critically wounded Palestinians and foreigners or dual nationals whose names are on a list. That list is agreed upon based on a deal between Egypt, Hamas, and Israel that was mediated by Qatar in coordination with the U.S. So foreigners had to wait several hours for paperwork to be processed. International aid workers were also allowed to cross. Ambulances and diplomats were standing by for their arrivals. However, some of the registered people didn't make it to Rafah or refused to cross without their families whose names were not on the list. Egypt says transfers will continue for several days for some 7,000 foreigners, with frustration and hope being seen at Rafah. This is where we end today's newscast. Thanks for watching.